All right, so in these, let's see, I have to say these. I think this video, yeah. So this video is just on the using the quadratic formula. Um, so the quadratic formula I've written out here in blue, or in the blue box. Notice you got to start out with your ABC. Got the order is really important, and I think we've been very consistent in class about that. And this is simply a formula; it just simply has to be memorized. Although there'll be an issue at the very last video, I hope I can get up tonight, which will help with the memorization, and you can get extra credit on top of it. So this is really neat. But so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. This formula can be derived from ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It can be derived from that using completing the square. That is not the way I will illustrate later on for extra credit. There's a simpler way to show the connection between the quadratic formula and the expression, the original equation here. There's a much easier way to do it, and that will be extra credit. That'll be on another video. So here it's just simply a matter of plugging and chugging, really, with care. So with care. So what I suggest for the clarity is to identify ABC, write that down here just to make that very precise in your mind, and substituting into the formula. Now you just have to be careful, and the errors I see are just people not being careful about the numbers and negative numbers. Notice that the formula itself has a minus b or negative b. I'm sorry. So if your b were negative, it's not here, but if it were, you have to be careful about that. It's simply really what it comes down to. I should simply add to that one here. It's the 4ac part, the 4ac. So 4 times 5 times 3. This is all a positive number. Sometimes C will be negative, and that not recognizing that and doing things with that in mind can cause problems. That's where I see the errors the most. So you just plug and chug, and you just keep on going down, simplifying, computing. You'll have two. Well, you won't have more than two answers. That's for sure. You may have two or one or zero, and I think my examples will illustrate all of those. But here we have two answers, and you simply reduce them down. Frankly, I think that's pretty straightforward. So I would not expect, aside from just computational errors or transcription errors, you shouldn't really have any problem with this that I would anticipate. So that's one example, and you might let me just leave that for a few seconds so you can stop the pause your video and write things out if you need to. And then just reworking the bottom just in case you need that. Okay, so that was one example. Very good. Here's example number 2 of using the quadratic formula. Let's see here. X squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Write out A, B, C, identify them. Writing them out is a really good idea. And then you substitute into the formula, and you just take care, computing, correctly. Really, not really a lot to fuss about. It turns out in this situation, the number inside the square root zeroes out. So you get only one answer. You get one solution. And in this case, it was -4. So that can happen, and that's great. I'll just give you a sec here if you want to pause your video to write out the problem and the work. All right, if that's sufficient, then we'll have a final example here of using the quadratic formula. Okay, looks like it's a little more complicated. Well, let's see here. So identifying A, B, and C, plugging in. What's different about this problem is that we get to this stage, notice that we have inside the square root 49 minus 64, we're going to have a negative number inside, so that can happen. No panic required. It's just we're going to get we're going to get those imaginary numbers coming out. Okay, that's why we studied them. here, notice I've started to separate out the answers here. I highly recommend you do that too, just for clarity's sake. The computation off here in red was just a reminder about how a square root of negative 25 would be dealt with. You have the square root of 25 part by itself, which of course is 5, but then you have the square root of negative 1, which is going to be called I. So, and otherwise just simplifying, but with one little area, one little thing here. The well, not say formula, but the form of this answer. These answers are complex numbers. They have a real part and an imaginary part. In other words, the number I makes its appearance, and it is standard practice to write this as A plus BI. So we're following that standard here, and I think that it's just an expectation. There's a good real world reason for this, although we won't really see it. It has to do with graphing. You can treat, and people do, the real part as though it were like x on the x-axis, and the imaginary part as though it were a y value. So there's kind of like these ordered pair looks to them, and that's exactly what you do when you get involved with using complex numbers, and often there's a combination of that with trigonometry. So that's, I think, why this standard of writing being very fastidious about that comes up. Okay, I think that will do it for the quadratic formula, and make sure you have the opportunity to write down. I'm taking it for granted you are able to pause the videos, and these are showing up well enough that you can write them. And I hope that's the case. And there we go. All right, so thanks very much. I think that will tie up the quadratic formula part, and next will be finding zeros. Thanks.